Hi everyone, I'm Jessie from Duke University. Today, on behalf of my co-authors, I'm presenting our paper on parents' perceptions and practices toward children's security and privacy in virtual reality. Recent years have seen an increased number of children aged under 18 years old in VR, leading to more public concerns about children's digital well-being and safety. At the same time, VR companies are trying to reach even more young users by lowering the age limit for usage. In addition to safety and well-being, prior research has identified some specific security and privacy risks in VR. For example, VR technologies collect a vast amount of sensitive data, including motion and eye tracking data. Unlike many other consumer technologies, VR collects these sensitive data that are indispensable for its immersive experiences, which is a core value of VR. In the context of social interaction, more security and privacy risks have emerged as VR evolves to become a popular form of social technology, including self-disclosure of a wide range of personal information, such as emotions, life experiences, and physical traits. Prior research that focused primarily on children in VR has chiefly centered around well-being issues due to the age-mixed environment that leads to intensive child-adult interactions, such as predators, harassment, cyberbullying, and inappropriate adult content. However, children's security and privacy in VR have been much more marginalized in scholarly work. Prior work has only conveyed a general message that bystanders and parents have concerns for children's privacy when interacting with strangers in VR. Still, the specific security and privacy risks as well as parents' mitigation practices entail further in-depth research. In mitigating security and privacy risks in technologies, children heavily rely on parent security and privacy knowledge and decision-making. Therefore, understanding parent security and privacy knowledge, perceptions, and practices is critical for identifying the gaps for parents, technology designers, and policymakers to enhance children's security and privacy. While such empirical knowledge is substantial in other consumer technologies such as smartphones and social media apps, it remains largely unknown in the context of VR. To address the gap, our research asks these questions. First, what are parents' perceptions of children's security and privacy in VR? Second, what are parents' risk mitigation strategies for the children's security and privacy in VR? Third, what are parents' expectations toward perceived critical stakeholders and future security and privacy enhancing features in VR? To answer the three questions, we conducted 1-hour semi-structured interviews with 20 parents. We advertised our study along with a pre-screening survey on VR-related Discord servers, subreddits, LinkedIn, and Facebook groups. We also reached out to a local school in North Carolina for our recruitment advertisement. For the pre-screening survey, we selected 20 participants who were adult residents of the U.S., parents, or legal guardians whose children use VR at home. In the interviews, to first have a better context building on their pre-screening responses, we asked participants to have a more detailed account of their children's and their own VR usage. Then, we asked them about their perceptions of the general risks and the benefits of children's VR usage. We did not ask participants about their security and privacy specific perceptions and practices until the next section, because we wanted to see if they would raise any security and privacy risks on their own initiative. If not, we were curious about their primary concerns. Following this section, we explicitly informed participants of our security and privacy focus and asked them to specify any security and privacy concerns they had. Additionally, we asked the participants about their perceived stakeholders and each stakeholder's responsibilities in addressing their concerns. Last, we asked the participants what strategies they had adopted to address the concerns, if at all. We also asked them about their satisfaction with existing security and privacy controls in VR and their desired features in future VR platforms. We closed the interviews with a live survey about participants' awareness and perceived effectiveness of the existing parental controls in VR. Now, I'm going to present our findings for research question 1 about parents' perceptions. When answering the question about their general concerns for VR, most participants mentioned concerns about the children's physical health, such as eyesight and possible injuries during their VR usage. In participants' narrations, physical injuries were defined as their real-life concerns. Parents also recognized some potential risks like data collection. However, they had no way to directly confirm these risks. As such, most of the parents disregarded privacy risks in practice. In addition to concerns about physical health, child-adult coexistence in VR was another major safety concern of parents, similar to what prior work has pointed out. In brief, parents were concerned about different types of bad influences from a variety of actors in VR, including adults, other children, and user-generated environments. After asking participants about their general concerns, we specified our focus on children's security and privacy in VR. About half of the participants said that they had never thought about the security and the privacy issues in VR before. After being prompted, participants were able to name some security and privacy risks given their prior experience with other technologies. While some participants working in technology or securing the privacy industries were more concerned about data surveillance, most of the other participants were more concerned about children's self-disclosure in VR. Although they were aware of the possibility of headsets and apps data collection, they generally disregarded such concerns in practice. For instance, as one participant said, "I'm more worried about their interactions with strangers than I'm worried about advertisers. There are all kinds of people talking about how eye and face tracking can allow companies to know more about you, but I don't know what they're going to do with it that we're worried about. I have never found an answer." Likewise, many other participants also perceived the data surveillance as still very abstract and theoretical to lay people. For parents who were more concerned about self-disclosure, they perceived the nature of immersive environments and cute avatars as the major reason for the concern. As participants explained, feeling immersed in VR makes it more natural for children to give out information to people behind the cute avatars. Interestingly, most participants said that they were not concerned about their own children's security and privacy in VR at the current stage because VR was still a very privileged and there were not many users in it to worry about, especially compared to other more mature technologies like social media. Most parents of teenagers also expressed their trust in their children's maturity in using technology. As a result, participants generally lacked the security and the privacy concerns in practice, and therefore did not enforce many mitigation practices. In summary, for research question 1 about parents' perceptions, we highlight a few points. First, security and privacy risks are regarded as potential risks, whereas the influence of VR on children's physical health is defined as real-life risks by parents. Second, among unidentified security and privacy risks, parents generally have greater concerns in social interaction contexts than data surveillance by companies. Although they can name a few risks from VR companies, they generally disregard such concerns in practice. Third, parents generally lack security and privacy awareness in VR, largely due to the belief that VR is still in nascent development. Accordingly, we made some recommendations, including having mandatory onboarding training to enhance parents' first-hand VR knowledge and leveraging physical metaphors when educating children about security and privacy in VR, considering that prior work has suggested that children perceive more security and privacy risks in physical contexts than online contexts. For our second research question about parents' mitigation strategies, we found that almost all participants mentioned proactively educating children through conversations and setting rules. Most of them also emphasized that these conversations and rules were not exclusive to their VR usage. Parents also frequently mentioned managing children's app access and securing the privacy information flows in VR through shared and associated accounts. Unlike social media usage, where children usually have separate accounts from parents, most participants share the only set of VR headsets and accounts with their children. While this practice was more out of limited practical conditions than mitigation considerations, some participants indicated that sharing headsets and accounts helped them better manage children's VR activity, including their access to certain apps. In contrast, we found that passive strategies such as using parental controls were perceived as useful. However, due to its low usability and technical constraints, the passive strategies were uncommonly used by our participants. One major discussion we had with our participants was how they balanced the children's security and privacy and autonomy in VR. Participants held to two different stances, with one valuing children's security and privacy and the other valuing their autonomy more. For example, this is a quote from a parent who advocated for children's security and privacy over their autonomy in VR. The participant believed that VR should be largely restricted for children's security and privacy, as children can practice their social autonomy in many other real-life scenarios. For research question 2 about parents' mitigation practices, our takeaways include: first, Parents primarily rely on active strategies. Second, although parents perceive passive strategies important, they are currently largely unusable. More importantly, we find that parents have very different trade-offs between managing children's autonomy and securing their privacy in VR. Mitigating these issues, we have a few suggestions, calling for VR companies to redesign their security and privacy controls for both children and parents, involving more engagement, modality-specific, and granularity considerations. For research question 3 about parents' desire to security and privacy-enhancing features, they collectively mentioned real-time security and privacy alerts when harmful interactions take place, AI-based harm detection, a secondary app in place of headset mirroring, and a general usage report. While participants desired these features, they're concerned about a more intense collection of children's activity in VR required by the security and privacy features. Hence, parents' complex trade-offs between security and privacy and autonomy have complicated their desired features. Due to time limits, we saved more actionable recommendations in our fall paper. If you're interested, please feel free to scan this QR code to access our fall paper. If you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out. To conclude this talk, we argue that it's imperative to improve VR security and privacy guidance, feature usability, and policy regulations. Thank you.